Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have just a few notes as we get started. This session will be recorded, and a link to the recording will be shared on the Tepper School's website on the webinars page in the coming days. We will be opening for questions in the later part of today's session, but you can enter questions at any point during the presentation by using the Q&A box on your screen. I'm Jessie Lahosky, Associate Director of Alumni Relations, and on behalf of all of us at the Tepper School, I'm delighted to welcome you to today's Tepper Webinar Series event. We are committed, as always, to providing the Tepper community access to our outstanding faculty, staff, and alumni experts via a multitude of lifelong learning opportunities, and are glad to welcome you back to the virtual classroom today. It is your support that allows us to continue our academic mission, and we ask that you consider making an annual gift to support our Tepper community and programming just like today's webinar. For today, we're excited to welcome the following Tepper alumni from Microsoft: Deepthi Kapila, a 2009 Tepper MBA alumna and the Digital Stores Leader Americas; Carolina Meza Fernandez, a recent 2020 Tepper MBA graduate and the Business Program and Operations Manager. They'll be joined by colleague Yesh Naidu, Microsoft Store Commercial Lead Americas. Together, they'll be presenting on accessibility in technology and will demonstrate how people can achieve more with the built-in accessibility tools and features in Microsoft technologies in both their professional and personal endeavors. Before we move into today's presentation, we do want to ask you to save the date for 2 additional webinars coming up in March. On Thursday, March 18th from 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern, Tepper alumni from Google will be hosting a session about staying productive in a virtual environment using Google Workspace tools. Our next Tepper alumni panel will be the following week on Thursday, March 25th from 1:30 to 2:30 Eastern, with a look to what's ahead for cryptocurrencies and blockchain, hosted by Brian Rutledge, Professor of Finance. Now, at this time, we'll hand things over to the team at Microsoft to get things started.
Thank you, Jessie, for that nice introduction. I'm going to start sharing my screen here. We're super excited to be here. So thank you, Jessie, John, Janice, for having us over. Our focus for today's talk is going to be how we can create a more inclusive world and use our technology to make the world more accessible. D&I obviously is a very important topic. It's on people's minds today. But we're going to really zoom in and zero in on the topic of accessibility today and share with you some of the tools that most of you most likely are already, you already have it. You may or may not be aware of it. You may or may not be using them. So our focus is really going to be demoing some of the tools. But before we do that, thank you, Jessie, for that quick introduction. I'm going to give you a little bit more detailed introduction about ourselves too, so you get to know who is presenting with us today. I'm Deepthi. I'm a Tepper 2009 graduate. Can't believe how quickly time flies. Feels like it was just yesterday that I was there in Posner Hall. And I haven't been back yet to check out the new campus, and it's on me. I'm going to go back as soon as the travel restrictions are lifted. But I'm very passionate about, enabling people, whether it is our customers, my team, my family, achieve their full potential, achieve more every single day. And, accessibility fits right into it. Accessibility, is not, when I think about my day-to-day job, I am the Microsoft leader for Americas. And yes, I think about accessibility, but also I'm not part of the accessibility team. So we'll talk a little bit later about how accessibility, even though you're not on, a particular team or organization at Microsoft, accessibility is everybody's responsibility. And it's a topic that I'm deeply passionate about. So that's why I'm here to share some of my favorite tools, and my colleagues here will share some of their favorite tools and features that are available through our Microsoft technologies. And with that, let me hand it over to Carolina for a quick introduction.
Thank you, Deepthi. So I just graduated from Tepper. I graduated last May. And then 2 months later, I joined Microsoft. And since I started doing all the trainings that you have at Microsoft and seeing all these accessibility trainings, I started to fall in love with this topic, and it became kind of a passion project for me. that's when I joined Deepti and Yesh to start doing these sessions where we can expand the message and try to reach more people. Because as Deepti said, accessibility is something that everyone can do. Like, it's not only if you're creating a new product, it's not only if you're like in that area. It's something that you can do with an email, that you can do with an Excel file, PowerPoint. I'll show later how easy it is to do it, for example, in PowerPoint. So this is something that I'm very passionate about, and I'm very glad that I'm here to share this message with all of you. And now I'll send it over to Yesh.
Hello, everyone. My name is Yesh. I am not a Tepper graduate, but if Deepti has anything to do with it, I will someday be. But I'm really excited to be here. I've been with Microsoft for 7 years. And in previous roles, I actually spent time with our customers, demonstrating these tools to them. And my passion really stems for stepping into schools and seeing how students are able to leverage these tools to empower them in new ways. So I'm really excited to share with you later on Immersive Reader and some other tools that Microsoft has developed. So yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Yesh. With that, let me start by stating the Microsoft mission. Microsoft's mission is to empower every person and every organization on the planet to achieve more. So notice that it doesn't talk about a particular segment of people. It does not talk about, just empowering women, or just empowering people beyond or below or above a certain income threshold. It talks really about empowering every single person and organization on the planet to achieve more. And you can only do that when you include people from different backgrounds, different experiences, different abilities as well. Right? And when we think about it, there are over 1 billion people in the world with disabilities, right? And there's 7.6 billion people in the world. There's over 1 billion people with disabilities in our world today. And most of these disabilities are actually invisible, right? And think of it, some of them are chronic illnesses. If you have a back pain, if I'm watching you on this Zoom meeting right now, there is no way that I would know that you have a chronic back pain that could be preventing you from doing certain things, right? So many disabilities that are invisible, whether it is low vision, any sort of vision impairment may or may not be visible, chronic illnesses may or may not be visible, sometimes certain mental health abilities or disabilities may or may not be visible. So always remember that, especially in this day and age where we are also remote and working over a Zoom or meeting or a Teams meeting, working remotely, and all you can see is my face, we tend to make assumptions about what the other person is capable or not capable of. So it's a good reminder to pause and say, am I making the right assumptions? Am I doing everything that I can to empower the person that's on the other side of this camera, on the other side of the screen, to really achieve more? Earlier, if you recall, in the 20th century, disability used to be thought of as a personal health condition. So if I have a disability, it is my problem. Now, the World Health Organization's definition, and in general, our society is shifting towards disability is not an individual's problem, but it really happens when the person tries to interact with the environment. And what that reframing of that definition really does is it takes away the onus from the person that has the accessibility issue to turning it on to the society to present it as a solvable business problem, a solvable social problem, right? So I think that reframing of the definition of disability is super important. And I think it's something that has really, again, opened my eyes too, as I thought about it, as I started, building my own awareness around this topic, it really helped in reframing how I think about ability or disability. Now, we alluded to this earlier on. Why is accessibility everybody's responsibility? It's really everybody's responsibility because otherwise, you're simply, just by the fact of not thinking about it actively, you are excluding over 1 billion people in the world today, right? And it, unfortunately, whenever you look at any of the stats that impact the general population versus people that have accessibility issues, you notice that it impacts them disproportionately. For example, here, some of the stats that you can see here, only 1 in 10 people have access to the products that they actually need to perform to their fullest capacity. The employment rate in this segment is really 2x that of the general population, right? And when we think about disability, it could be of various different kinds. So all of us at some point may have experienced some sort of disability, right? There are certain types of permanent disabilities. The example here is, somebody who has one arm, either, born with it, or, it has happened over their lifetime. Somebody who has a temporary disability. How many of us have not had, a broken bone, broke our leg, broke our hand? So that is an example of a temporary injury, temporary disability. And sometimes it could be a situational disability as well. So let's say you're a new parent, or even if you're not a new parent, you have, let's say you're carrying a big stack of books and you're trying to enter the Tepper building, or you have a big stack of pizzas that you're carrying in for an event that you're going to have in the post-COVID world, and your hands are full, right? That right there is a situational disability where you're unable to grab the handle of the door and open it, and you should be able to, have the push button right there to be able to easily open the door and walk in, right? So disability can be of many different kinds, permanent, temporary, situational. More often than not, they could be invisible, and it really is everybody's responsibility to be thinking of it actively and solve it as a social and a business issue. And this is a great example. So regardless of how you get, so let's say you're all in, the Tepper building. Now, whether you need to use the stairs or whether you need to use the elevator, every single person that's entering the Tepper building should have access to the same meeting rooms, or the same classrooms, right? Accessibility is really about that. How do you provide the tools that are required to achieve every single planet on the person to achieve more? And if you don't, this is a great quote that actually Yesh shared with me. This was taken a while back, but if you don't think about accessibility, you're really saying to every 5th person, now every 7th person given the population of the world, that, hey, I don't care about you, I don't want your business, right? And no individual would want to do that, and no business would want to turn away, the 1 billion population either. So with that, let me stop sharing here real quick, and I'm going to reshare my screen as well. And while I'm doing that, Carolina, are you seeing any questions popping into chat that you want to call out here?
We don't have any questions yet, but feel free to drop any questions you have. We're happy to answer them.
Yeah, questions, comments, you're welcome to share all of those things. So I'm going to share my screen again. So here is an example of a Outlook screen. Outlook is something that I use every day. Most of you may be using every day. So this is, a simple email that I'm sending to my colleague here. Angela, hey, happy Thursday. We've been invited to present to CCSM on our best practices tomorrow. Are you available tomorrow? Here is what my calendar looks like. Now, typically, sometimes what some of us tend to do is, let's say, I have this, I'm trying to take a snip of my calendar here. You should be able to see it in just a second. Or let's say, I even take a snip of this, right? So here, I take a snip and then I paste it here. And, let's for a second assume that this is a snip of my calendar, right? And here, what you see as soon as I pasted this picture, I don't know if you guys can notice this, but here, right here, it says a recipient prefers accessible content, review accessibility issues, right? And when I hit review accessibility issues, what this tells me is, hey, you've included a picture in here, but you haven't provided alt text. Because if you're somebody as the recipient that uses screen reader, this is not really going to translate to them, right? So instead, a best practice here is, instead of saying, here is what my calendar even looks like, I would just say, here are some slots and just type it in, right? Instead of using a picture. So that's one best practice. Or if you should you choose to, include a picture in here, you do want to add in an alt text to it so that the screen readers can interpret it and read it out aloud to the other person. And right here, when you do that here, you'll say Monday, 9 to 9:30 a.m., right? And then right there, it has said, when I've removed the picture, it has said no accessibility issues found here. So that's just a best practice and how you can use the tool and the accessibility checker that's built into Outlook to make somebody feel inclusive, right? And in this case, we're using one of the screen reader tools on the recipient's end, and on the sender's end, I am using the built-in accessibility checker. So with that, let me turn it over to Carolina, who's going to share her favorite accessibility feature. So I'm going to stop sharing here real quick. Turn it over to you.
Dipti, before I share my screen, there's one question that we might want to address. How can you be inclusive of people with invisible disabilities if you don't know what the disabilities are and what accommodation they might appreciate?
I think it's a great question. And Carolina, yes, feel free to weigh in as well. I think this is one where it goes back to one of the other talks we were doing earlier this year around the inclusive behaviors we have typically at Microsoft, right? And there are two dimensions that really, really talk to me on that front. One is simply practicing awareness, right? Like knowing and being aware that everybody has something going on and being aware of it. And I think the second dimension of that has also really been very powerful for me is exercise curiosity. Most people are not offended if, especially again, it really depends on first laying the foundational layer of trust. You really want to have that foundational trust layer. But once you have that, exercising curiosity and asking questions can really make a huge difference, right? So that's my 2 cents. Quick answer on it. I can talk about it at length as well. But
so this is my favorite one accessibility thing that we have on PowerPoint. This thing doesn't let me see. 1 second. But here, it's something that I try to use every time I'm going to send a PowerPoint presentation. It's very easy, just as you check for any grammar mistakes and you would check for spelling, for example, you can go here to review and then check accessibility. And you'll see here all the mistakes that you have on your presentation. So for example, I created this slide with many mistakes so you can see how easy it is to fix them. So for example, this is slide 15, and you would go here, it's missing alternative text. So as Dipti was showing us with her calendar, if someone is using a screen reader, this wouldn't, and I don't have the description for these pictures, it wouldn't let them see what the picture is like or hear it. So for example, this one, let's assume that it's nothing. It's just a nice picture that I want to have. So I want to mark it here as decorative, so it doesn't read anything from this picture and it doesn't distract the person on it. So if you see that one is gone, then if you click here on chart, on this chart, for example, I didn't add the legend. So that is something that I could go ahead and add it here. Let's say graph showing monthly revenue, FY20 versus FY19, something like that. And then if you go back, we don't have that anymore. Then here we're seeing that it doesn't have a title. You can see that all the slides have a title except for this one. So what I can do is come here and just add a title here. Just I can copy paste it. And now I have the title for that slide. So now you can see that here we have the title. Hard to read text contrast, same thing here. So I can change the color, and now it's easier to read. And then finally check the reading order. So here I can go and verify the order. So for example, if someone is using this to read with a reader, they would hear first whatever it says on the rectangle, and we want to see, of course, the title first. So I can rearrange this and have it in the order that I wanted. You can see that picture 4, since it's decorative, it doesn't have a check, so it's not going to read it. And then you can see that we have no longer any accessibility issues on this slide. So on this presentation. So it's a great tool. It's very easy to use. A lot of times you don't know all the rules, and this helps you spot them and know what it is that you have to check.
That's awesome, Carolina. I'm loving all the questions that are coming in. So if you want to stay on here just a second, Carolina, because I think you can still demo something. Patricia says, I'm interested in text-to-voice options. Yes, we'll cover that in Yesh's section. Is there a way to do and then we have an anonymous attendee asking, is there a way to do the accessibility check without being prompted by the recipient's request? Yes, the answer is yes. The way you do that is there is an check accessibility feature that's built into most of these products, whether it is PowerPoint, Outlook, Word. So maybe if you can go back and demonstrate how you started the check accessibility feature, Carolina?
Yeah, it's the same as you would do with the grammar that you do in Word or an email, for example. You would just go to review and then here check accessibility. So we don't have any issues right now, but they would all pop out here.
Absolutely. And my favorite thing to do, Carolina, is also like if you right click on that check accessibility, you can add it to your quick bar on top, and it adds it to that orange bar. So then right there, it's adding it there. And usually, one of the things I do is as soon as we make a presentation or something, it's that check accessibility on the top that Carolina has on her screen is something that I just hit on, right? Like as soon as as you're building your presentation, as you're building a Word document, or as you're building, an email, just like you would do a spell check or a grammar check, just, I think it's a very quick one click and you can see all the warnings and issues with it. Great question. Thank you. And then there is another question that is around, do you have any accessibility tools oriented towards individuals on the autism spectrum? Roger asked that question. That's a good question. I think, yes, I'm not sure. Maybe maybe one or two you might be able to show. But if we don't have the answer to it today, Roger, please find us on LinkedIn. I'm very interested in, answering that question for you. And we'll also send it to Jesse, John, and Janice so they can post it as a follow-up or as a comment when they go ahead and post this presentation online. There's also one more question, Carolina, as you're still here. I know you're presenting, so I'm reading the questions out for you. Is it possible to view the full alt text rule set, warnings, errors, etc., how to turn it on and off? Yes, I don't know if there is a full, oh, there we go.
I'm not sure about adding new rules beyond defaults. However, exactly where Carolina is right now gives you all the information in terms of the why and the how to change.
There we go.
And also, at the end of this session, we're going to give you some links that go to our accessibility website at Microsoft. And there's also an accessibility training that you can get, like your accessibility badge, to add to your LinkedIn. And there is a lot of tools that you can use and that you can learn more about.
Great questions, everybody. Please keep them coming because we want to make this actionable for you. John has asked a question. Is there a way that it automatically comes up as we're building the documents? I don't think there is that feature yet, but Carolina, just like, or Yesh, you know how when you're typing in the document, if you misspell a word, there is that red squiggly line. Have you seen a way that it automatically prompts?
For example, with this picture, when I add this picture, it immediately pops up here. So when I remove the check, the decorative, when I put it, it says no issues found. When I take it off, it immediately pops up here.
Right.
So same thing with if I change again the color here, it would immediately pop up here. So yes.
That's awesome. Great, Carolina.
Okay, I'm gonna hand it over to Yash.
So I'm actually going to take a step back. I do have a demonstration that will go through some multiple tools, but I'm actually going to start off in settings. And so this is something that is specific to Windows settings, but from my understanding, you will actually see similar options across other platforms such as iOS. And so if we start at settings, the content that I'm going to share with you over settings and then the tool called Immersive Reader is really going to hit on a few areas of support in being able to empower people with vision, hearing, neurodiversity, and learning. So first, we're going to tackle just ease of access. I'm going to go here. This is something that I actually do before a lot of my presentations, especially to group audiences. It's a very simple thing. Once again, that was just going into settings, and then you can see I'm in a general settings area right now. I'm going to go over to mouse pointer, and I'm going to increase the size of my pointer. Everybody should be able to see that much more clearly now. And then I'm also going to change the pointer color to something that's a little bit more neutral versus the standard white. So just those two steps right there. No matter what you do or do not know about your audience will make things much easier in terms of your presentation. So I'm just going to lower it just a little bit there. I'm also going to show a couple more here that are just general PC settings. We have magnifier, we have color filters and high contrast. This is actually another powerful one, just like I showed you right now in terms of changing my mouse pointer. That's obviously something that for me is going to be able to make senders or recipients of my group presentations, it'll be make it much easier. But just for me as a user, high contrast can make things a lot better and easier to view depending on my ability to see things. And then you can also see that there is a narrator. I think there was a question earlier around being able to narrate. So this is actually something that's specific to PC settings and allows the devices to turn on a screen reader and describe what's going on your screen. So these are just a few features and benefits that are built in to Windows devices. Really, my best practice here is if you do have a Windows device, or even if you can find out what the exact setting is on another platform, this mouse pointer thing, I've heard from a lot of folks on calls that it's just a simple thing that makes it a lot easier for them to follow along. I'm gonna switch over to my browser and I'm actually gonna walk through now. Immersive Reader. you should be familiar with this website. From some of you have probably seen it recently. I'm gonna, before going into and opening the immersive reader, I'll talk a little bit about what that is as a tool. So Microsoft developed learning tools back in 2015. So it's been 6 years since this tool has been developed. And it was actually a concept at something that we have internally at Microsoft called a hackathon, where many groups of people get together and just try to hack for something good. And from that, there was an idea for something like this to be able to help dyslexic students with reading. And now, today, Immersive Reader is actually available in over 30 languages, which you will see soon, and used by over 13 million monthly active users. So I'm going to go ahead and once again, I am on my Edge browser right now. So this is a new browser available from Microsoft. This tool is actually available on the Edge browser. It's also available on Microsoft Word, Microsoft OneNote, on a plethora of our Microsoft 365 applications. So if you're on a site like this where we see a body of text, you may not have noticed if you are using Edge that there's this little booklet right here, which allows me to enter Immersive Reader. There's also the ability to hit function 9 as a shortcut. So when I press this, you're going to see a lot change. So immediately we're seeing that body of text really constrict and make things easier to see just in terms of viewing angle and viewing platform. So I'm able to really scroll across this in a different format. Now, and just for me personally, a lot of the sites that I view daily, I just enter Immersive Reader because I personally have a preference to view things like this. But when you see at the top here, this is where we really open up this plethora of options for us to be able to empower people.
Tepper School of Business.
First, we see reading aloud. I just played that and it kind of went fast. So what if I actually wanted to slow that down a little bit? You can see the ability to change the speed here. I also have the ability to change the voice to something that's maybe a little bit more natural to me. So I'm going to go ahead and change it maybe to the UK and let it load for just a moment.
Business. Tepper School of Business. Why Tepper? Why Tepper? The Tepper School of Business.
So we really slowed that down quite a bit for me to be able to walk through that. This is obviously great for reading websites, but it's also really powerful when you think about how how you can give the students the ability to write a paper in the way that it makes sense to them, and then hear it back and understand if maybe something didn't fit at first, and slow down that voice so you can really sound it out. You can also, there is the ability to add more voices, but if I scroll down, you can see just how many different options there are here in order to make things very natural for the listener. So I'm going to close out of that one, and then I'm going to open up text preferences. And so here we have the ability to, we're seeing things in a kind of just, I guess you could say natural text size, but what if I wanted to see things larger? So I can make that much larger. And I can also, I'm going to just move it over to kind of a medium high size here, increase the text space. So once again, I'm able to kind of really widen out the text in the screen. And then for low vision or any other vision disabilities, I can change the page themes. Something as simple as this white and black text can be a major blocker for folks. So something like changing it, just like I did with my cursor to this, can really open up the platform that you're viewing on. And you can see how many themes there are here as well. So I'll keep it in this green. And then I'm going to switch over to grammar tools. Now, here's where we really open up a lot of the capabilities really for students. And so what we can do here is we can split words into syllables. So right there, if you didn't catch it at first, you can see a word such as offer, and you can really sound that out and slow that down. You can also highlight specific parts of speech so if you're a student that really is just having trouble understanding what is the difference between a noun and a verb or just nouns, I can change that color. And maybe this isn't the most easy to view color for me. I can actually change what that specific part of speech, what that color is. So now I can change that to something maybe a little bit lighter. And you can see kind of the different abilities here for parts of speech. So I'm going to turn that off, and then I'm going to go to my personal favorite, which is reading preferences. So here, once again, we've done a lot already. We've changed the color, we've widened this, the reading sizes, but what if, once again, this is still just too much information for me to take in and I really want to be able to focus? So I'm going to go ahead and scroll down a little bit and just turn on line focus. Or I can scroll down with it. And what we're really seeing now is a hyper focus on just one specific area of this page or document. I can change it right now to be able to shift over to 3 lines. I was at 5, or even just 1 line, and be able to kind of go one by one and really be able to get into the nitty gritty of whether it's a website or a document. And now I'm going to shift off line focus, and then I'm going to turn on picture dictionary. So now when we're on picture dictionary is turned on, I can see this little magic wand here across many words. And if I click that button, then I'm going to be able to see what that word is. Super powerful tool that will really be able to highlight what different words are on a page or document. For many of them, it'll also be able to, I noticed it wasn't on here, but it would also have a little voice so that you could press that and just hear this one word. So you could, from a single click, be able to visualize what this word is and also hear it. But I noticed for some reason it's not here, but typically it is. And then the ability to translate. So now we can see this entire page. I can actually open this up. And as I mentioned earlier, this started with a small hackathon project here in Microsoft. And now there are over 30 languages that we can translate this page and also documents into with the click of a button. So I'm just going to go ahead and choose Spanish, and within a few seconds, now we've translated this page into Spanish. Now, just kind of speaking back to me growing up, I'm a first generation American. My parents immigrated to the US from Fiji, and I just wish I had this tool because I would be able to switch to something like Hindi here, and my parents would be able to really quickly read back my work and tell me what I did wrong. But you can see how there are many different applications in terms of how this powerful tool can support many learners or people. It doesn't matter if you are a student. This could really, like I mentioned earlier, in terms of how I use this just to read documents much more easily. It's just a super powerful tool. Like I said, this is available natively on Microsoft Edge. You don't need to do anything to download an extension or anything like that. And it's also available natively on OneNote, Microsoft Word, and other Microsoft applications. I did want to show one more thing, but before I do, it's just going to be another page. Carolina or Deepthi, were there any questions in the chat?
There's one question. How did you get to that bar? I assume is the immersive reader. So if you can show it again, please. Mm-hmm.
Yep. I'm actually going to switch over. If that's the only question, I'm going to switch over to one more. I'm going to close out of the Tepper site. And this is just a general news site talking about snow and where I am right now. And it actually is snowing outside when I looked last. You can see right here, enter immersive readers here. Now, I did want to real quickly mention that this is not going to show up on many sites that, don't have this form of text, such as like a shopping site. So if I'm going somewhere where there's like a shopping cart or just a general high-level website where there's just a lot of links, you can imagine how there's not this immersive reader tool here. So if you don't see this show up on Edge, for example, if that's what you're specifically asking about, then it's because that site isn't necessarily optimized for it. But something like this, such as a site with a body of text or a blog, will always have it. So it's going to be right here. And then you have the ability to also press F9 to be able to do a shortcut into it. So hopefully that answered that question. Feel free to, if you had a question or a follow-up to that, feel free to put it into the chat and I'm happy to answer. For this site, once again, it's just a general news site, but there is so much going on. And this is true for a lot of news sites right now. You have ads, you have videos, and for that reason, a lot of people just avoid these because it's just too much put in front of them to be able to handle that at once. So once again, when I press this button, you would have probably not noticed this in the Tepper because you don't have all that going on like advertisements, but it's really just going to eliminate all of that. And what I love about this is, first, we're eliminating ads on the right side of just, all these news sites, but also this has actually remembered my preferences, from everything from read aloud all the way to reading preferences. I just made those changes maybe seconds ago, but as a user, these preferences are vital for me. And this is really great that I like this feature across many platforms, is just remembering what my preferences are. So just another avenue of, why this can be such a powerful tool. So with that, I'm actually going to switch over. I know, Carolina, you demonstrated PowerPoint beautifully just a moment ago. I'm actually just going to show that something as powerful and simple as the accessibility checker is also available in Excel. So I'm actually going to move this down, and right here you have a monthly budget. A lot of users, when you're using something like, especially power users of Excel, don't necessarily think about accessibility. Maybe something more visual like PowerPoint, it makes more sense naturally. But if I do have something like this and I go over to review and then once again, the same steps to be able to get here and hit check accessibility, I can see here that there's actually quite a few things here that are hard to read because of the text contrast. So once again, this is really speaking to the vision or low vision audience, and me being able to see here that there are some colors in here that the contrast is just not working well, possibly for everybody. So I can see why should I fix this. It's really nice that the accessibility reader checker does tell us why and the steps to fix it. So I won't go too deep into this because I know we've covered it, but I just wanted to share that. This is a really powerful tool for Excel as well. And with that, I will go ahead and open it up for questions.
So we have one question from Brad. Yes, I noticed in your bio you work in e-commerce and have partnered with B2B sales. I work with an inbound sales team fielding digital inquiries and also work on our existing digital buy experience. Where do you see opportunities within the e-commerce space to improve the customer experience from an accessibility perspective, and any best practices?
That is an amazing question. And I know Deepti's probably like ready to go. I'm going to speak to something very specific. Actually, now that I'm not sharing my screen, I should be okay. I'm going to speak very specific to something from my sales experience in a different role. We essentially, and this is probably a familiar tactic for a lot of sales roles, you've got a list and guideline of questions you would want to ask inbound leads, and they were very typical to understanding your customer and building that relationship. And one thing that one of my previous managers mentioned is, where in this document is accessibility talked about? Where are we learning about what is important for our customers in terms of accessibility? And it became actually at the forefront of the questions that we asked these prospective customers, because it opened up two things. One, it showed that you truly do care about accessibility. And two, it is driving that conversation forward. Imagine having that conversation with a prospective customer and they're thinking now, wow, that's actually not something I've thought about for my company. So not only are you building that stronger relationship, but you're also possibly driving some grassroots foundation for accessibility. So that's my personal answer. And then, Deepti or Carolina also, if you want to add anything else.
I think you answered that question. There's nothing else that I want to add, Yesh. There's a few more questions that are coming in, but that was a great answer. I agree, Brad. It's an important area, and Yesh, that was an excellent response. Do you want to take, Caroline, do you want to read out the other questions? I see a bunch of questions coming in.
Yes, so we have If we wanted to share immersive readers to individuals who use Chrome, is there an extension? As far as I know, this is Edge, but Yesh, do you have another answer?
Yeah, it's a great question. So that actually came up in one of our previous, I think, another audience training for this. And what we found is that there is not a Microsoft built extension for Chrome that shows exactly what I just went through, but there's actually multiple Chrome extensions available that provide accessibility tools like what I just showed you. So I actually pulled a couple together for a previous audience, and I'm happy to share those links post-meeting so that you get that.
Cool. There is also, I think the Google folks are also coming next month to share some best practices. So it would be a great question to ask them as well.
Yeah, we don't have any more questions.
I saw just one coming in just now. Maybe the screen does not show full presentation display. How do I adjust for screen to show full page? Yes. It's a question from Bob. So maybe when Bob's clicking on the immersive reader, it's not coming into full presentation display. Do you want to maybe quickly demo that again?
Yeah. Let me do that now, and then let me know if you.
Bob, if you want to. Bob, if you want to clarify your question or give more specifics, feel free to type it in the chat, please.
I think I can tackle it. So we have here, I'm just going to go back to this example, the ability to enter immersive reader. What I'm going to do next is actually hit the ellipses. And then, so that's right here. And then I'm going to enter full screen. So I think this answers that question, because maybe when we do first enter immersive reader on the browser, we're still going to see things like our favorites at the top. But if you just hit the ellipses, which was at the top right, and then enter full screen, then you're really getting that true full screen experience.
That's awesome. Cool. Yeah, so there are no other questions. I'm going to go on to the resources page. I'm going to start sharing again, but at the same time, if there's any other questions, then, Bob saying that answers the question. That's awesome. Yes, thank you. I'm going to start sharing my screen again here to show you how you can continue the accessibility journey here.
Deepti, before that, we have one more question. What are some of the challenges facing accessibility in technology, and what are new innovations in the space? For me, I think one of the challenges for accessibility is that people are not aware of it. For example, for me, up to 6 months ago, all of this was new. I had no idea that accessibility checker even existed. So I think that that's something that it's a big challenge to get people to know more about it and to use it. Deepti or Yash, do you have any other insights?
Yeah, I mean, I think you answered it, Carolina. I think for me, again, personally, it goes back to those two main dimensions, right? I think the biggest challenges are, one, are you aware? Are you practicing awareness? And are you exercising curiosity? Those are the biggest challenges. And then once we overcome those two hurdles, then I think we, again, are reframing our mindset and we are able to innovate. And everything that we saw here today, I think, those are examples of great innovation, and they're born out of these hackathons that we have at the company, or, it can even be in your day-to-day personal life where it may or may not be involving technology, but you're practicing awareness about how to make something more accessible to somebody in your family, somebody, down the street from you. So yeah, for me, it's really about practicing awareness, exercising curiosity are the lack of those are the two biggest hurdles. And lots of companies are doing this today. Obviously, Microsoft has made a big commitment to this, but again, we're here today to show you some of the tools that you have available, but at the same time, if you're using something else, then, I'm sure there may be some other features that may be available there that you may also want to explore?
Real quick, sorry, go ahead if you had.
No, that's it.
Yeah, I'm really excited and passionate from the first couple of years of demonstrating immersive tools. I think that the resources and innovative tools have exponentially increased, not just from Microsoft, but from many global leaders. And one I'll share in the chat, it's very difficult to actually demonstrate it, but one recent one is the Seeing AI application. It's available across iOS and in devices so that you can use the power of the camera on your phone to turn the visual world into an audible experience. So it's a free application. I'm going to share a link in the chat if anyone wants to learn more, but that's one innovative resource that I've been a big fan about.
It's a really good one. Any other questions, Carolina, that you're seeing that are coming up?
Yes, we have one just popped out. I've done a quick browse of websites and don't see a lot of immersive reader icons. Without it, seems you can only navigate to read aloud under the ellipses. Is there any other strategy to initiate accessibility if the web page is not built with it?
Yeah, we've gotten that question before. There certainly is, I don't know from a developer standpoint what is required. There is, I see the links getting posted in there, the Microsoft.com accessibility kind of documentation page really does go into a deep dive into how we can enable sites to become more accessible. So that might provide some more information.
Okay,
there we go. Thank you, Carolina. Thank you, Yash. And the session today was just meant to be a teaser to pique your curiosity, and hopefully you found at least one or two tools in here that you're going to start using on a day-to-day basis, or you're going to share it with somebody who you think might need it. But please feel free to continue your accessibility journey. There are three of our favorite resources that are mentioned here. If you go to microsoft.com/accessibility, you can continue your accessibility journey by learning more about within your favorite Microsoft product, what are some of the accessibility features that are available. There's also a lot of accessibility features that are built into Windows itself, which we did not even touch upon today, because that we could do a whole other 60-minute session on just the features built into Windows. But if you're somebody that's using Windows on a day-to-day basis and you feel, again, like either you can benefit from it or somebody in your family can benefit from it, feel free to go to that website and learn more. And then get your accessibility in action badge. This is a fun badge that you can, there's a set of steps you follow. And if you follow those steps and you answer a few quizzes and you read a few documents, you can earn your accessibility in action badge, and you can proudly display it on LinkedIn, showing that you are an ally. And finally here, this is the last TED Talk here is, it's from Stella Young. Maybe many of you may have already seen her TED Talk, but if you haven't, I'd highly encourage you to go ahead and watch it to get an additional perspective on how she talks about, she's not, people's inspiration, right? So again, the onus is really on the environment, and we shouldn't be treating people with disabilities as our inspiration. They're going about their day-to-day lives. The onus is on us to make the environment more accessible. So with that, thank you very much for your time. I'm really excited about all the questions that came in the chat. If you want to find us, you can find all three of us on LinkedIn. Feel free to post any questions you have. If you have a specific scenario that you're trying to solve for and you can't find the answer, again, reach out. We're here to help everybody on this call, achieve more as well. So reach out. With that, let me maybe turn it back to Jessie for any closing comments she has.
All right, thank you so much. As we reach the end of the hour together today, I know it flew by for me. Thank you for this wealth of information. I really want to thank Deepthi, Carolina, and Yesh for sharing their knowledge and expertise on accessibility resources with us. And of course, thank all of you in attendance for taking the time to join us today. So from all of us here at the Tepper School, we hope you will join us again soon on an upcoming Tepper or Carnegie Mellon webinar. Thank you and hope to see you again soon.